guys, welcome to my strength and conditioning foundation presentation. So the presentation I'm basing tonight is strength conditioning. A lot of people think that strength conditioning is getting in the gym and lifting big weights. I want to show you guys tonight that that is not the truth, right? The truth is it's not about always like getting into the gym. It's always about a foundation. So I want to talk about the foundation. First of all, a little bit about me and my background on strength conditioning. I've been in the gym since I was 13. That makes me sound very old. So almost like 30 years of training in the gym, strength training, etc. Obviously, I was working in the fitness industry for 15 years as a personal trainer, and then I'm now starting to move into more, I suppose you could call it to remote coaching, consulting. So it's been a good journey for me, but a lot of my background comes from the Czech practices. If you haven't heard of Czech, it's a guy called Paul Czech in the States. He does a lot of like holistic strength conditioning, life coaching, and like nutrition stuff. So that's where my background comes from. So all the theories that I'm going to teach you tonight is all related to that. So I will reference a lot of stuff from Paul Czech because it's a lot of stuff I've learned from him, and obviously all of his resources. So should you actually be lifting weights in the gym? Do you know what? For 70% of people, it's a no. It's a no. A big no, a big cross no. As I said, I worked in the gym for 15 or so years, and I still go to gyms now. And 70, probably even to 90% of people should not be doing weights in the gym. They can't move properly, their core's not functioning properly, and they're doing the wrong exercise. It's as simple as that. They're ticking time bombs for most people, and this is why a lot of people get injured. Because they haven't got the movement, they haven't got the posture, they haven't got the core function, haven't got the glute activation, right? So they're doing a lot of damage to themselves. So I suppose, again, for me, is to educate you guys on what you can be doing as a foundation. Okay. Now, I've had so many consults, so many conversations, phone conversations over the years with, if it's a weight loss client, athlete, whatever, or just people inquiring, right? They've got bad posture, and once I start talking about the posture and the correction stuff, and I talk about the cost, they go, "Oh no, I don't have the time, or I can't afford it," right? But they'll still go and do play sports or smash themselves in the gym. The amount of people that have come back to me and they're being, I've torn my ACL, I've got a rotator cuff tear, I've got a blown disc in the back, has been phenomenal, right? So this is what I'm trying to do is obviously stop that and change people's thought process in regard to the whole strength and conditioning theory. So I think for me, look, I don't lift big weights, pretty well much because I'm an endurance athlete, but I guarantee most of the people I see in the gym, I would be just as strong as them, and I could lift probably more weight if I wanted to, but a lot of people are lifting weights way too heavy than they should be, right? They're putting a load on their body, and a load on the body is a stress, right? The more stresses that we have on the body, the more the body, or the faster the body will break down. So I think one thing is, the first thing is that assessment form I sent out is to assess where you're at. So this is, if you're a ticking time bomb, as I've got in that form, ticking time bomb, if your scores add up to 40 plus, ticking time bomb, that means you should not put any load on your body at all, right? Or if you're 20 to 40, right, that means you still need a bit of work. Right, 2 to 3 posture sessions a week, and 2 to 3 movement sessions a week. Right, if you're 0 to 20, right, that means that we can start to add some load. It's pretty safe to add some load now, right? But if you're closer to 20, like you still got to be cautious. Right? So that assessment form is a really good tool, a good starting point to know where obviously like you're at. And those things that identified that put your scores up a bit higher, right? It's a good thing to know so you can start to work on them. Right? That sounds really important as well. So if we're going to get specific in regard to strength conditioning, right? You need to, first of all, I spoke about like goals. You need to know like what your goals are, right? So what are your goals in regard to strength conditioning? So is it to increase muscle mass? Is it to increase performance? Is it to run better? To play with the kids, obviously a lot better. So whatever it is, you have to get specific in regard to that goal. And that's the same sort of process going through that pathway prediction program that I've got with all the videos as well. So if I can just talk about some of the foundation processes that I do teach in regard to lifestyle. The first one is the 6 steps to optimal health. Have you guys heard me talk about this before? 6 steps to optimal health. If you've been like with me for a while, you would have. Yes. So it's simple, right? Step 1 is motivation. All right, so motivation comes from goal setting, right? So like goal setting creates obviously motivation. Step 2, breathing. How many people practice their breathing, right? If you can't breathe properly, and look, 95% people that I get in for a consultation are not breathing correctly through the diaphragm, right? If you're not breathing correctly through the diaphragm, well, guess what? Your core is not working properly. If your core is not working properly and you're putting a load on the body, you are setting yourself up for obviously a back injury or a shoulder problem or a hip problem or a knee problem, right? So breathing is the foundations, right? Now, I'll just show you quickly how you breathe through your diaphragm is in through the nose, push your belly out. Right. So breathing through the diaphragm is so important. So many people breathe short, shallow through the chest, right? And what happens here changes the whole mechanics of the spine. If you're breathing kyphotically, protracting as you're breathing, the whole spine mechanics change. So this is not good for posture straight away. So I want you guys tonight just to practice breathing through the diaphragm. And if you can't breathe properly through the diaphragm, put your fingers up under your ribs. See how tight you are there. Just start to massage that out. All right. Generally, when you're so tight through either rectus abdominis or your diaphragm muscle, you should be able to. I can get half my hand up under there. Right. If you can't, you can just massage that out. There is a way to PNF stretch your diaphragm as well with a water bottle. Breathe in, push into the bottle, exhale, push that down, stretch it out. But Petra, you have to be on your back to do this. I'm just giving you guys some examples tonight because, look, to be honest, I'm doing a little bit of a test run. I'm putting a book together, Strength Training Foundations. So I'm doing a little bit of a test run. This is the short version of what I want to be teaching. I will be doing a full 90-minute presentation on all this type of stuff coming up shortly. So today is just touching on obviously a lot of the stuff so you guys can start to get your head around it if you haven't already. So the breathing is number 2. All right. So number 3 is hydration. Are you drinking good quality water? Right. If you're drinking tap water, you're in big trouble. Right. The chlorine, the chemical, is going to kill all the enzymes in your digestive system. Right. You don't want to be drinking tap water. You want to be drinking good filtered water. It's good. Put in sea salt in that. Or a lot of you guys know I drink from the Kangen water machine. So this is alkaline water that goes through titanium plates, etc., etc. So that is probably the best water that you can get for your digestion. So, but if you can't drink that, Puritat's fine, put sea salt in the water, right? That's going to be your next best thing. The sea salt in the water puts like the minerals of the water back up, so it drives more into the cells, so it's not passing through your system as quick, right? That's why we go to the toilet so much if we're just drinking a normal like water that hasn't got the sea salt in it. So that sea salt is going to absorb more into the cells. All right, hydration, sleeping. Sleeping is number 3. Sleep, right? Why do we need sleep? One of the most important parts of training, absolutely critical. 10 to 6 is crucial sleeping time. We're working with a circadian cycle, right? 10 p.m. at night, right? The cortisol is at like the lowest point. Obviously, melatonin is high. So we sleep in those times. People say, yeah, I still sleep 7 hours, 8 hours. I go to bed at 2 and I sleep till like 9, whatever. It doesn't count like that. It doesn't matter. 10 to 6, like we have to be in those crucial sleeping times, right? And that's why I said we're starting the bike sessions at 6:15 next month. You got to sleep till 6. Okay, let's talk about like nutrition very quickly. I could talk about this all day. So I think the biggest points to identify in regard to like nutrition is identifying metabolic typing. Right? If you're more protein, if you're more carbohydrates, or if you're in the middle, right? A more like mixed type. So those types of like metabolisms is important to identify so we can start to fine tune it. The second probably biggest tip I could give is eat organic food. A lot of people still don't believe that organic produce is the best way to go, only because of the cost. But if you don't pay for it like now, you might pay for it 10 years, 20 years time down the track, right? So you pay a short price now for a bigger price later. I'd rather pay now than later, right? So organic foods, incorporate as much organic foods as possible. And of course, exercise. Exercise is movement. I'm not going to talk too much on this now because I'm going to go into the foundation steps in regard to starting the strength and conditioning program. But like one thing I did post in the group today was talking about the 4 doctors. There's only 4 doctors that you ever need. And this is reference from Paul Chek again, right? The 4 doctors. So like Dr. Quiet, right? So what does that mean? Dr. Quiet, we need quiet time. We need self-time. You know, so many people need to be with someone all the time. If you do, you've got something wrong. Right? You need that quiet time by yourself. All right. If you've got a partner, if you live with someone, you need quiet time to yourself. You definitely do, to have a good balance of the whole body. If it's time to yourself for a walk, if it's time to yourself for a meditation, but we all need that self-time. Okay, some people need more self-time. I need a lot of self-time personally. I'm quite content of just being by myself. Most of the time, like 90% of the time, I'm very content. I find that it takes me to another level to find a good balance in my life of have that quiet time. So if you're not getting any quiet time to yourself, you really have to think about that and put that in your goals, right? More quiet time to myself. And what are you going to do specifically for quiet time? Like Dr. Happiness. Dr. Happiness, it's important to be happy. It's important to be fulfilled in your life, right? If you're not happy, you have to rethink what you're doing in life, your goals, all right? So why aren't you happy? Right. Is it because emotions? Is it because your childhood? All these types of things come down to if you really, truly are happy in life, right? What is your purpose in life? Are you doing what you were meant to put on this earth for, right? To make you happy. These are the things you really have to think about. Dr. Diet spoke about nutrition as well, right? A lot of people running to the doctor all the time because they're sick, etc., etc. Yeah, these 4 doctors are the keys, right? Like Dr. Diet. I know you guys have all got pretty good diets, but like I said, metabolic typing and organic produce. is something that you really have to consider seriously. All right, and the last one is doctor movement. We all need to move. The body is meant to move. You guys are all moving, so that's good. I don't need to talk about that too much. Okay, so let's go and talk about, first thing is, before I train most people, if it's in the gym or if it is, I'm programming for strength conditioning, right? Like, we need to assess posture, right? So what does that mean? Posture, I say posture and people go like this, head comes back, shoulders are back, and look like a robot all of a sudden. Right? Posture is important because if you haven't got good posture in the gym, right, you aren't going to have good technique, right, for strength training. And if you are doing either movements or progressing into loading exercise, if you haven't got that posture, your technique's going to look like shit. And if your technique looks like shit, what you're doing is reinstalling a faulty motor pattern, right? If we are installing a faulty motor pattern, every bad repetition that you do, right, yes, we have to do another repetition to correct it. So if you've been doing bad technique for 20 years, how long do you think it's going to take to like reinstall a new like motor pattern so you've got a good technique? I'll tell you, approximately 3,000 to 5,000 like repetitions. So if you've done a squat, right, for 20 years and it's been bad technique, or a lunge or a deadlift, right, it's going to take 3,000 to 5,000 repetitions to make it good. That's a lot of work, right? But to help that, right, we need to get the pelvic in a good position, right? We need to get the head in a good posture. Yes, we need to get the rib angle at a proper position, and then the spinal curvatures from C7, T12, L5, right? A lot of times you've either got an excessive lumbar curvature or you've got an excessive thoracic curvature at the top, which looks like that, right? So that is not what you want, obviously, if you're going into a strength conditioning program. Some of you guys have been to see me for a postural assessment, right? These are some of the tools I use. So this one here is to measure, okay, rib angle and pelvic position. So pelvic position here, I put some marks on the body. I don't just take a guess just like I'm doing now. I find the right point and we can see where that pelvic position is on both sides, of course, because they do work very differently on both sides. Us guys should be 4 to 7, right? If you see this here, 4 to 7 degrees. Wait till that little needle stops. So it shouldn't be any more than that. Okay, like females, 7 to 10. I see a lot of females around 20, right? 20 are like degrees. Hip flexors are so tight, okay? The glutes are not functioning properly and the hamstrings are weak, which puts us into that anterior pelvic tilt, okay, which starts to put a load. If you're doing squats and you've got an anterior pelvic tilt, an excessive anterior pelvic tilt, I guarantee that you're going to get a pinch back sooner or later. Okay, so the rib angle, this might be hard to do myself, that goes here and here, and we measure where, okay, so like the rib angle is now. Now, this is another tool I use to measure the head posture, right? That's going to come up, hit that part of the face, I get a reading. All right, the reading that I just got then was 2. See it there? But the head posture should be 3 or less. Every 1 centimetre that we go over 3 is an extra 3.5 kilos pressure pushing on the head, right? And I see a lot of people that are around 7 centimetres like forward. So that's about 3-4 centimetres over that 3. So if you do the maths on that, 3, 7, that's like an extra 14 kilos pressure on the head. No wonder they've got sore necks, right? Last one I use is this is like a compass to measure spinal curvatures in the lumbar, here, thoracic, cervical, okay? The degrees in curvature that you should have in your cervical, in your thoracic and your lumbar are 15, 15 and 15, right? So most people at the top can be anywhere from like 30 to 50 to 60, I've even seen, okay? In that thoracic spine, 20, very curved through there as it starts to come up, right? In the lumbar, it can vary. I think the most common thing that I'm seeing at the moment is probably more flat spine, right? So they haven't got arms mobility in that lumbar. So I wanted to show you guys that today. Some of you guys have been and seen me for a postural assessment, which is great. If you're interested in coming to see me, you can. But what I'm working on is to put those assessments into my book for you guys to be able to do a self-assessment. I haven't quite got my brain around like how we're going to do that yet, but I think a self-assessment would be much more beneficial to postural assessment than coming to see me every like 4 to 6 weeks, just to make sure that we're in spec in those limits. So that's a really important part of like setting that foundation before we go into the gym and start lifting. Let's talk about flexibility and mobility, right? 2 different types of things. If we're talking about flexibility, what we're talking about is length, tension, relationships between muscles. Example, like I just said about the anterior tilt, so we've got the quads and the hip flexors and we've got the hamstrings. So if you've got an anterior pelvic tilt, we tip forward, like we've got a bad relationships in the quads and the hip flexors, and in the back there, it's weak, right? So they are working antagonists to each other. They haven't got a good balance, right? So like I said, if we start to load that, it's going to cause a problem. So a lot of people say, oh, I don't need to stretch, I do yoga. Yeah, look, that's great, right? But if you're stretching something that shouldn't be stretched, and I see a lot of people, I'm talking a lot about like anterior pelvic tilt tonight, right? So a lot of people are so like dominant in hip flexors, but if you're stretching the hamstrings even like more, you're going to make that pelvic position worse, right? So yeah, it's great to do like yoga, but it's not specific to your needs, right? So if you're doing a lot of like yoga, you might be stretching something that shouldn't be stretched. So we only stretch something that's tight, right, in regard to posture correction. So that's something to really think about. We talk about mobility. So we're talking about pretty much like spinal curvatures. If you've got an excessive thoracic curvature at the top here, right, we generally haven't got no like mobility through that thoracic spine, right? So we've got vertebrae stacked on top of each other, and they don't bend. They don't bend, right? They don't bend. They're stuck, right? So mobility is a lot of work that we do on the foam roller. Could be specific exercise that we do as well. So for those 2 things, flexibility and mobility, right? I've got 2 like videos. One of them is my 5 best exercise on the foam roller. Now, if you don't have one of these, you're in trouble. I'm sure all you guys do. But if you don't have a small 4-inch, this thing is like a rock, right? Super hard. So it's great for mobilizing spinal joints. It's also good for releasing fascial tissue in the tight muscles. So the fascial tissue is the muscle or the fibers that surround like the ligaments, right? It's like a sleeve. Now, if that is all stuck together, right, they don't glide properly. They don't glide, so it's hard. So a lot of people will try and stretch something that actually like the fascial tissue is stuck to our like, ligament. So you're not actually going to get the muscle to stretch until you've broken that down first. All right. So that's why a lot of the release on the foam roller is important. So, yeah, I've got the 2 light videos. The first one is my 5 best exercises on the roller. If you're not too sure of that, you can see it on my website. Or I've also got the 5 best stretches to recover, right? So I've got the hip flexors, I've got the hamstrings, I've got the adductors, I've got the glutes, I've got some chest stretching and some lat stretching. So they're pretty much all the bigger muscles that get tight. But like I said, it is important to identify if your pelvic position is anterior posterior, especially for the hamstring or the quad or the hip flexor stretching, more of or less of. So that's pretty important to identify. I think the biggest thing I could probably say, if you're not too sure, you're better off stretching some more hip flexors, right? Because even though if you are posterior, right, so the hip flexor is still a big muscle. It's a big, thick muscle. So it probably does need more stretching. The hamstring, they do need stretching if they're tight, but generally a lot of people stretch their hamstrings and they're not tight, they're weak, right? So you need more strengthening. All right, so as I said, check out my 5 best stretches on the roller. Sorry, my 5 best exercise on the roller and my 5 stretches to help recovery as well on YouTube. I want to talk about now the core. The core is the biggest integration in regard to the top to the bottom, right? That core is not functioning properly. Obviously, we're going to have a lot of problems. If we've got a lot of tightness in the hips or mobility through the lower parts of the spine or the hips as well, right? So that's going to be a big problem because all them muscles are integrated in the core. Right, so that's why flexibility, mobility comes first, and then core condition. Obviously, we can work them together, but it is important to make sure that we have a good understanding of mobility in the hips before we do too much core work. Now, if I talk about core work, most people are doing a lot of stuff that is way too advanced for them. They're doing all this fancy shit in the gym, right? That is all it's doing is working your hip flexors and loading your lower back, right? Because the lower abs, they've got zero coordination, right? And I have a coordination test and a strength test also. So you guys should have seen my videos if you're on the coaching program. So testing that core is absolutely essential. And I do recommend, testing that core on a weekly basis, right? The test itself can be an exercise, right? If you've got any lower back problem, do not do the strength one, but the coordination one is a great one to identify if the program is working, if the core exercise that you're doing is working properly, right? So think about that. And I said before as well, the breathing. If you're not breathing correctly through the diaphragm, right, the core generally is not going to function properly. So a couple key things to take away from tonight is going to be make sure you do that core test on a regular basis. To make sure you're doing the diaphragmatic breathing on a daily basis, right? I generally say in the morning and at night before you go to bed, right, spend 3 minutes just going through your diaphragmatic breathing. What a great meditation like that is to help the body to relax. In the morning, when you wake up, just go through a few breathing techniques, get that breathing, get that pumping, right? I always tell the people the diaphragm is like a pump and that stomach is like a pond. If that pump is not pumping properly, that pond will go stagnant, storing fats and toxins and obviously slowing down that metabolism. So the diaphragm is a pump, stomach's a pond, right? So the core is important, but you've got to have that breathing right first, right? It took me a good 3 months to be able to naturally breathe through that diaphragm. I learned that technique, I reckon, 8 years ago now. And it took me a long time to install that motor pattern in my mind so we can naturally breathe through that. right? If you look at a newborn like baby, they breathe automatically through the diaphragm. As we go through life, stress, trauma, etc., causes us to breathe more up here, short and shallow, right? So we start to not train that diaphragm to pump properly. So that's why it's so important to practice it. So we breathe through it subconsciously. Right? Consciously, at the moment, you're probably thinking of it, so you're doing it, but not subconsciously. Right? So we need those 3,000 to 5,000 like repetitions to be able to naturally create that again and get that pumping. So the groups of the core, I did mention the lower abdominals. So these are the guys down here, right, that run from like the belly button straight down. So we've got transverse abdominis, TVA, that runs around into all the muscles in the back and the vertebrae in the back. That's like your weight belt, right? So we've got pelvic floor. If you cough, you can feel that pelvic floor activate. Right, that's important to have that. And then we got our multifidus. So these are the deep muscles of like the lumbar spine, which attach into the transverse abdomen. So these guys, all these guys are a team. They're team players, right? You need to get this team functioning together. If that team's not functioning properly together, something can go wrong, right? Another thing I just wanted to bring up as well, if we've got like gluten intolerances or leaky gut syndromes, right, these can shut off the core like muscles as well, right? So like nutrition plays a big part in core function, right? If we've got inflammation in the digestive system, like I've had people that I've been doing the core training with, I've been doing the postural work with, but they've got too much inflammation in our digestion that the core is not going to work, right? So this is something to be conscious of as well, right? Have you got inflammation in your digestion from certain other foods? Now, if you're eating shit, yeah, you're probably going to have that, but just consider and start to fine-tune that diet as well. Eliminate those things that are causing you bloating, that are causing tightness or cramping or pain, etc., right, before we start a core conditioning, strength conditioning program. Okay. This is a great thing that Paul Chek actually says. You can't fire a cannon from a canoe. Right? How true is that? And that's your core. You try to fire a cannon from a canoe, you're going to be gone, right? Same thing if you're in the gym trying to lift big weights, right? And your body is the canoe and like the weights. Imagine trying to do like a 20-kilo squat in a canoe, a single leg, right? You're bound to go overboard if you haven't got that good core control. So remember that. You can't fire a cannon from a canoe. I love that quote. I really do. All right. Now let's talk about movements. How are we going for time? Talking a lot, aren't I? Movements, right? These are the key foundations for our movement. They're called primal movement patterns: squat, lunge, bend, push, pull, twist, and gait. Right? So if we talk about a squat, yes, we all need a squat. Have to squat down and sit on the toilet. Yes, we'll have to lunge because someday we've got to do a lunge to pick something up, right? Yes, we have to bend. We have to bend down and pick something up. Example, like deadlifts. We have to push. We've got to push things. We push things in the gym. We push things at home, and we got to pull things as well. So if those motor patterns aren't functioning properly, right, things can go wrong. Right? If we got a twist exercise, example, a wood chop, a ball throw, it could be the football twister, right? A lot of transverse plane exercises are very important. Now, if we talk about the gait, I spoke about the hips and the pelvis, like we gait, it's when we walk, right? If we haven't got that good gait in our walking, other things start to compromise. example, lower back, sacroiliac joint, or like further up that spine as well. Example like thoracic spine and stuff like that. So they're the key foundations: squat, lunge, bend, push, pull, twist, and gate. Right? So like we have to learn those like movement patterns before we start to load. Now, so many people I know, I've seen in the past that have got terrible primal like movement patterns, but they're still in the gym loading up, right? Like two things, right? First of all, you're creating a faulty like recruitment pattern. Secondly, you're a ticking time bomb for something going wrong, right? So we have to make sure we get them correct. Squat, lunge, bend, push, pull, twist, and go. Right? Now, I'm going to just talk about some of the common mistakes people make in the squat tonight. But look, as I said, I want to do another 90-minute presentation on this and go through all those primal movement patterns to make sure that you are obviously doing it correctly. Okay, so if we look at the squat, common mistakes people make in the gym when they're squatting is that their feet are too close together, right? The hips are built to squat out here, right? So this is a lot more, less pressure. So make sure your feet are just outside your hip of the butt. Your feet position as well should be toes 20 degrees turned out, right? A lot of people will squat like this, which jams up your lower back. Okay, so that's the first common mistake. The second common mistake people make is when they squat, their knees going too far forward, right? They go too far forward. Why do they do this? It's because their glutes are too tight, right? Your glutes are too tight. I see it straight away. As soon as I see someone squat like this, I go, man, your glutes are too tight. You're not stretching your glutes enough. The glutes, if we squeeze the glutes, we can't push back, right? We squat forward instead. So that's a big common mistake. And I always get people to start stretching the glutes, right? So once they stretch those glutes out, straight away, instantly, that bum will go back here, right? See the knees now? They're not over the toes like they were because the glutes are so tight. Push the bum back here and the knees. Now, if you just have a look at my spinal curvatures, a small curve in the lumbar is good, right? So we just want to keep a neutral spine, right? The head position is always here, right? Chin tucked back. If we've got a bar, the shoulders are back. Or if not, haven't got a bar, if it's a bodyweight squat, we can keep the arms out in front to help keep the thoracic up. From here, we push through the heels, get the glutes activated. So this is the common mistake people make with the squats. And I've seen someone, I see things on YouTube, these experts, and they go, oh, I finally mastered the squat. It's number one, they've got a fucking weight belt on. Right? A weight belt shuts off your transverse abdominis, right? So your core is not functioning properly. I've mastered it. They've got a weight belt on, and they look like this. Squat down, right? Pushing up here, and then all lower back. Right? Their glutes aren't even functioning. Right? Their glutes not working. A proper squat is here. We lift with the glutes. We get the glutes to do the work. Here. Right? If you're doing this, and then like that, oh my God, your back is going to be blown out sooner or later. And it's no wonder that you've got a weight belt on. That's a big no-no. Weight belts, hand straps or hooks, all this sort of shit that all the bodybuilders use, it's a big no-no. It's not functional. It shuts off a lot of things, right? It helps us to lift the weight that you shouldn't be lifting, right? So that speeds up the process of breaking down the body. Another common mistake people make is when they squat, they collapse over more here. Right? They collapse over more here, generally because the hip flexors are so tight. Hip flexors want to pull you forward straight away. Right? So that's why a good hip flexor stretching program is so important. Another common thing is if they round at the back in the thoracic spine, like this, it's because they haven't got that thoracic strength, right? Or the lumbar erector strength. These guys at the back here, what is going to lift you up or what stops you collapsing over forward? Right, so they're the common mistakes people make on the squats. So it's important to identify that. And look, if you guys, even though you guys aren't all on my strength and conditioning program, I suggest if you're doing any workouts, and I say this all the time, you know, send me a video of like what you're doing for me to assess it. And I can go, well, look, you're doing like this wrong or that wrong, right? I've been, as I said, in the gym for 30 years. I've been a fitness professional. I know what bad technique looks like. I know how to correct it. And I know what beautiful technique looks like as well. As I said before, 70% of people in the gym look terrible. And I've got to close my eyes a lot of the time. Like when I walk in, I still go to the gym a lot of the times. And I see people there, but, you know, and actually when I worked in a big commercial gym like many years ago, I was always trying to give advice in the nicest way to a lot of the bodybuilders and stuff like that were in the gym. And they would look at me and go, oh, you're a small guy. Like, what would you know? Do you know what I mean? Tell me to piss off. So, but then I wouldn't see them for 2 to 3 weeks because they're blowing their back out. Like, it's crazy. Okay, next topic I want to talk about is, should you work out or work in? Right, so this is the big thing. Now, if you've got that high stress score, like 40 plus, generally you should be doing posture correction and working in. So this is another thing that Paul Check has come up. It's with a lot of the zone exercises. Now, I've incorporated a lot of the zone exercises into my M15 workouts, etc. So the zone exercises are work-in exercises. They're energy-building exercises, right? They're still really good. Like, I have a lot of people, example, on a weight loss program who want to lose weight. And they go, I'm in the gym at the treadmill at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, can't lose weight. Well, for number one, you're doing these stress exercises too late at night when you should be bringing that body down, right? So I've given these people just some simple zone exercise, which has helped to relax the body, put them more in to a parasympathetic state, right? So what does this mean? Parasympathetic is when the body is more, when we start to bring the body more down to good balance. So most people in such a sympathetic state are so stressed out, their metabolism is not functioning properly, their adrenal glands are so burnt out, right? Their mind is just flying along, they're not sleeping properly, they're eating crap food, right? It's just a catabolic train wreck, right? So these people should not be working out, right? As a triathlete, I definitely put myself in that, and I put a lot of you guys in that state a lot of the time, but I do a lot of these meditative exercises as well to work in, right? To bring that body back down to a more parasympathetic state. So that's an important thing to think about as well. So I was saying before, weight loss, you can just do these exercises, train less and start to see a result in regard, because the body, the metabolism now is starting to function properly. If we can sleep well, eat well, and bring the body back into a more sympathetic state, right? A parasympathetic state, that's going to make your body function better, so much better. So just quickly, last thing I want to go through is, you guys have done with me a breathing squat, right? So this one is good for cultivating energy in the morning, right? And you want to be able to do these as slow as possible, anywhere from 20 to 50 repetitions. The color I want you to think about is red. Breathe in. Right, the second one, I'm just going to come down on my knees for this, but you can be standing up. This is called a thoracic mobilizer. So what we do, we just turn the head and turn the arms. It's a little bit of coordination as well, and you can see my hands are moving. Just slow right down, breathe. You can close your eyes. Color I want you to think about with this one is blue. This is great for the shoulders. This is great for the thoracic spine, and it's really good for the neck as well. Okay, so that's a really good one. That's a thoracic mobilizer. The last one is a wood chop. This is so good for the digestive system, right? The digestion is going to work a lot better if it's starting to move. So just here, with the hands, we chop down and come up. We chop to the side. Come up. Chop down. The color I want you to think about, this one is yellow. And then to the other side. Okay, so good to do after food. Right. So what's the thing that you do on Christmas Day? Right, you eat so much, and so what do you do afterwards? I need to go for a walk. Same sort of thing. The walking, because the gait pattern is starting to move that digestion around. The wood chops, same thing. Side to the middle, and then the opposite side, right? That's a really good zone exercise as well. Just so remember, think about that color yellow, right? That's why you're doing that. So like red for the breathing squats, blue for the thoracic mobilizer, and like yellow for the wood chops, right? So they are working in exercises, right? Now, there's obviously, I think like for me, there's a fine line being a triathlete. There's a fine line between overtraining, okay, or undertraining, right? Undertraining, I say that it means that I want to perform the best for the next event, so I've got to be at my peak. But there's a small line that you can just go over to being overtraining, to put your body in that more sympathetic state where you start to break down. And I've burnt out plenty of times. And like for some of you guys that I do coach on a triathlon program has been the same, right? Because we're trying to get that peak like fitness. So sometimes these work-in exercises are more like beneficial to do. Sometimes. But if we're not training for triathlon, right, these exercises are absolutely great to do, right? Actually, do you know what? They're great to do for everyone. All the time. But some days, if we're like burnt out and we're sore, we're tired, and we go, oh, we've got this 2-hour bike ride, or we've got a 60-minute run today, or a swim, whatever, or a strength set, I can't do it, yeah? So sometimes it's a good idea to listen to the body and go, today I'm not going to work out, I'm going to work in. I'm going to do these zone exercises. I'm going to give the body a break, give the body some love. All right, cool, guys. Well, look, that's it from me. I want to open this up. If you guys got any questions, anything that you guys aren't sure of, please unmute yourself and fire away. Petra.
Yeah, I had one question in the start when you were talking about run training. I was wondering if you have online sessions, if you're planning online sessions for that as well or not.
No, I won't be doing online group sessions, but like what I can be doing is putting something more specific of those programs if you wanted to. Like obviously, I'm sure we would have a chat about this in the coaching call. If that's a goal, a bit more like running in the off season, is I can schedule that into your program and tie that into your program for you. Definitely,
Awesome. Thank you.
definitely. For sure. But do you know what? That's a good thing that you did bring that up, because in winter, if it is like raining, well, perhaps it might be an online treadmill session
Okay.
for sure. So that could be possible.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else got any questions they want to ask? No, we're all good. Told you everything you needed to know.
Thanks, Aaron. No, that was really good.
Okay, awesome, guys. Look, thanks so much for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. As I said, I will be doing, that was just a little bit of an introduction. I've got so much more information to give on that. As I said, I'm working on a book that I want to bring out and a bit longer presentation to go into more detail, which I'll hopefully be doing in the next couple of months. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. Have a great night.